or 15 years from now, if we face a situation where you simply move the Imanis, the contract workers, the unestablished workers, and you say become established officers, where you have an unfunded, non-contributory pension, it is not sustainable. And what happens in those situations? When a government faces that, they will have choices. Do we pay the workers who are actually working, or do we pay pensioners? They will not pay the pensioners, because the pensioners can't strike. They can't withhold their services. And that's what happened for the 40 years. Successive governments made a deliberate decision to say, with limited resources, are we going to pay the pension, or are we going to pay the workers who are currently working? And when things got tight, they didn't just not pay pensioners. They then had an attrition policy that said, for every 10 workers we lose, we are only hiring 3. That is part of what has led to the challenges in the public service. Now that was the policy decision that they made then. Not only did they do that, first we say for every 10 that go, we only hiring 3. They then said, we are only going to hire you in circumstances that guarantees you do not have any entitlement to pension. That guarantees you do not have job security. That guarantees it's 1 year contract, and then we roll it over to another year, and then we roll it over to another year, and then you can't even go to a credit union, you can't even go to a bank. And they recognized that, because just before the election they gave GDP $10 million and said, give those contract workers and so on who can't get loans from the banks, give them loans, because we put them in a position where we know as soon as they go, they will say to them, well, you only have a 1 year contract, so we can't deal with it. So what does this pension bill does? It puts us in a position, Mr. Speaker, where when we enter into 2025, there is a regularization framework. And that's why I say people are not stupid or simple. There is a regularization framework. The public servants know what that framework was. Over 300 of them who are in acting positions were confirmed. Mr. Speaker, when you're acting, you're straddling two positions. You have your substantive position, and then you're acting in one. So the person beneath who needs to move up can't move up because he's straddling both. So when we confirm those who move up to a high acting position, it frees up the post for those who are beneath to come up. When this process is finished, we then have the 2,000, 3,000 plus people who are either on contract, off, for, in between, up, down. We then put them in a position, Mr. Speaker, to start eliminating the discrepancies between them and the established officers. And the single biggest discrepancy is, one, the lack of a pension. The second one would be the lack of job security and tenure. And we will be addressing that in 2025, so the reference to these fixed term 1 year contracts are eliminated. So, on the one hand, you're saying immediately, and then you come here and rush and say, well, why are we rushing the pension bill? So we appreciate you don't want us to do anything for the workers. We understand what this is about, right? And so to you, it's rushing. But it is 40 years of waiting. It is 40 years of waiting. So, Mr. Speaker, we don't intend to wait. Right? And I will conclude because I think this is important for the beneficiaries of this. All of those who are talking on the other side had the opportunity to do the very things we are doing here. Instead, they hired you on 1 year contract. Yes. They hired you as Imani, making you work, masquerading as training. They refused to pay the pensions for the established workers. They have never addressed the minimum wage in their entire existence as a political organization. They've existed for 40 years. They have never sought to address the minimum wage orders in the entire 40 years. So, Mr. Speaker, I will quote the mantra that I think has guided this process, and I will thank the Permanent Secretary for the wise quote, I don't know who's the author of it. And it says the secret to change is focus. Not on fighting the old, but on building the new. We are not fighting the established officers who have their constitutionally guaranteed pensions. That is yours. If you're an established officer as of today's date, it is yours, it is constitutionally guaranteed. We've paid it in the past, we will continue to pay it. But we are asking you to remember your fellow brothers and sisters who are working with you and who sit side by side with you who do not have a pension, and support them in this initiative so that they can have a pension and have a future. When they exit work, they have the opportunity to go and live in dignity, knowing that they have a country that has respected them for the work that they've put in serving the citizens of Grenada. I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker, for the extra 5 minutes that was afforded. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, and I now invite the Honorable Leader of His Majesty Opposition to take the floor.
Mr. Speaker, of course, I sat here and I hope my watch is not incorrect. I hope it's understood that the opposition leader requires the same time to respond to what was just said, in many cases, not true statements. Mr. Speaker, let me make this point. Some people could talk about 1983 and 1984 because they might have read it in a book, or somebody told them a secondary story. I was there. I was there. So I speak the truth from the facts, not some storytelling that I heard a short while ago, Mr. Speaker. Not storytelling. Mr. Speaker, I had some contradictory statements about pension. The leader of government basically said that NP, we never delivered on pension. The Minister of Finance said that a certain amount of money was paid on pension in 2022. The Prime Minister, in the legalistic way, said that he didn't say pension retroactive. So he was very legally on the right track. So he wasn't contradictory as the other two were. But that is the gymnastics that you see. Mr. Speaker, I hear about this bill is history making. History making. It doesn't talk about the 2,200 workers whose pension was being paid even before the Glasgow arrangement, the Glasgow decision. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, there is a section that is now being proposed in the bill that talks about repayment for overpayments. Well, where were the overpayments made and when? You're not hearing about that. Why was there an overpayment? Because there was a rush to play games with the public purse for political purposes when this government was elected. Because monies were paid to people, and because the data was not researched appropriately, people received monies more than what was required. So they are now talking about these people must repay those monies, Mr. Speaker. But you're not hearing anything from those who listen to stories and talking about Joe Brazan and so on. They are talking about that. I was there. And I challenged the then minister. And it is false, Mr. Speaker, to say the formation of the National Democratic Congress was because of these wages and pensions, workers. This is nonsense. It was far from the truth. It was far from the truth. The history and the data will show there were other issues that were involved. And at the right time, in fact, I'll use a special piece to explain, because I'm the one that's there, was there and is still here. So I could speak to it from facts, not what I read in a book and somebody tell me. Some of us were just 5 and 6 years old at the time. Yeah? I was there. I talked about George Brazan. Recall when I spent about 2 days literally tearing apart the Minister of Finance presentation and had the whole country on edge, Mr. Speaker, and that's not a boast. But Mr. Speaker, I heard this statement, how come some public servants, you know, how they were so unhappy and how they should be overjoyed. They should be so overjoyed now. The stories are there. If the workers of the public service chose the leadership, and the leadership is having problems with the actions of a government that affects the workers, you telling me you want to dismiss that? We don't necessarily agree, as we did with the union representation on issue, but we never refuse to finalize any major agreements without ensuring that we had some level of consultation, even when, and in fact, it is well known that the union leadership played a major part in this government being in office. That's a fact. Cannot be denied. I'm talking about fool me once, fool me twice. They fooled me 5 times and 6 times. Is that what he said? We fooled the government and the people of the country 5 times and 6 times? Only a young mind that was not there and was maybe asleep in 83 and 84 will talk those language. But I was not asleep. I was right here in this house, Mr. Speaker. I was right here. Fool me once, fool me twice, and then fool me again. You are yet to know whether you're fooling the people or not. The time will come. Sooner than later, it will come. I passed through it 5 times. We passed through it 6 times. So don't talk yet, Mr. Speaker. Don't talk yet, through you, Mr. Speaker. When you pass that stage, and then they give you a re-endorsement, then you have a right to speak. But you cannot speak like that now. I can't speak, Mr. Speaker. I just hope you guys stop little children stuff on the other side of the trio, Mr. Speaker, because I kept my cool, even when some things were being said, which were not true. I did not disturb anybody. So I expect the same thing in return. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I move now to address some of the issues on this public sector reform bill. It is very interesting, Mr. Speaker, that we are hereby seeking to discuss a bill to advance pension reform. This word should make members on the other side choke. when they use the word pension reform, simply because this word was never used in the campaign. It was, we will pay the pension, and we will pay it. If, please, Mr. Speaker, please, Mr. Speaker, the sad thing is, one member said that the pension was being paid. Another one said that it was not being paid. Another one said we paid retroactive payments. I don't know which one of those that the members in the House want to be consistent on. Maybe they should talk to each other. I don't know if they talk to each other because they have a king. We don't have kings, Mr. Speaker. They have a king, but there's some kings one day will find out they're no longer kings. 5 times, 6 times, Mr. Speaker. It's clear that I'm touching Mr. Speaker, it's clear I'm touching some corns.
Just hold on, Honorable.
Because I didn't get those chatters when I was on this side.
That's why I asked you to hold.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please.
While I understand the emotions from my right, I want to be able to hear the Honorable MP without too much interference.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that you shouldn't speak, but I want to be able to hear him clearly as he presents. Proceed, Honorable.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I know how difficult it is for members to sit down and listen to the truth. So it's hard for them, but you put yourself in that position, not me. Mr. Speaker, so not discussion about pension reform, and we in government, in the New National Party's government, ensured that because we understand numbers, if we have to go back to 58 pension, the facts are, with all the non-payments and we're not done, and with the country's resources limited, it means that we won't be able to meet fundamental responsibility in several areas. We are being honest. So when someone comes around and says, just vote for me, I'll pay the pension. And some of the same people that did what they did today are being accused of being not wanting to cooperate. Well, they have to deal with this, Mr. Speaker, but that's the problem that I find with this government. Mr. Speaker, say they touted and paid 525 persons retroactive payments, and we don't have a problem that they did this. But they also say they promised in less than 3 years of governance, they made that payment. And now we are talking about public sector pension reform. That word which was never used before. And this is very significant for the workers. Now, I don't necessarily agree with them. But if you say something and you said you're going to do it, and you're going to do it, by the stroke of a pen, it will be done. Stroke of a pen, what happened? The pen had a stroke. I hope the pen didn't have a stroke. But that's the kind of games. And people come and stand in here and posturing. Oh, as if some of them just what they read, and somebody tell them second-hand stories. That's what read. Never read nothing. I lived it. So an MOU, Mr. Speaker, was developed in 2018, and there were several persons who were involved in that discussion. And they came up with discussions with the unions, and he said we engaged them in deeper conversations. Mr. Speaker, talks broke down because the union leadership did not agree that we should look at pension reform. Because I was pointing out the problem. That's a fact. We're not here to play games. We did not agree. So that is where we were. But promises were made, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we saw what happened eventually, and we hear what's happening now. It's sad today that some of the workers, Mr. Speaker, the same workers who marched through the streets then for the 1958 pension to be affordable, retroactively and otherwise. Some of the same people today, Mr. Speaker, are being told that they're doing something wrong. Some same people were promised the converse. And that is the problem, Mr. Speaker. So however, Mr. Speaker, the issue is you could sit down with the workers, but it appears there is a dictatorial approach in conversation with the social partners, Mr. Speaker. The fact is, in government, under the new National Party's government, Mr. Speaker, we brought social partners together. We had the churches, the non-governmental community, the business community, and the government side, and the trade union movement, meeting monthly, Mr. Speaker, monthly, discussing issues, and we listened to them. Not always agreeing, but listened. But I don't hear anything. If the union is telling lies, well, they're telling lies. They told us they were not consulted. And I repeat that here today. They told us, but I'm hearing from the government side that they were consulted or they attempt to consult them. I don't know who's talking the truth. But I could only say what was told to me, and I could only repeat what I heard in this honorable house here. So, Mr. Speaker, this is quite a problem as far as I'm concerned. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I want it to be clear. The members on the other side must appreciate that this matter has far-reaching implications for the current and future workers of this country in the public service. The government, Mr. Speaker, stood on platforms over and over, and even in their heartbeat program, Mr. Speaker, and claimed that contract work is illegal. And the lawyer speaking, you know, a lawyer speaking, not a liar, a lawyer speaking. Contract work was illegal. All of a sudden it become legal? Is it legal gymnastics again? Some of us are not legal experts, but we understand certain things. But is that no apology? No apology for coming, for saying it's illegal, and now it's now legal? And it's legal all over the world? Well, it's Canada, the United States, Barbados, Trinidad, anywhere. It's legal, but in Grenada, a certain lawyer says it's illegal, and now it's now legal. This is the kind of gymnastics that is being played with the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, given the view then, how is it that this section 3, subsection B of this bill excludes workers above 50 years of age and who exceed 15 years of continued service? How does it exclude them of any benefits? And have there been any agreement with the workers that that is okay? That's a question. Are these same workers spoken of on the campaign trail? What would be the pension entitlement to these persons who are excluded? With almost 3 years in government, Mr. Speaker, if you want to see 2.5, going to 3, the question is, what is their position? What is their position? We're not hearing and people knocking the desk. You believe knocking the desk will solve the problems of this pension bill? And everybody jumping, knocking the table as if your hand will break. And if it's something wrong, yeah, that will not solve this. It will not solve it. It is what is happening to the workers when they get up and speak.
Honorable.
And the time will come, Madam Deputy Speaker, the time. Bishop. Go ahead.
Honorable member,
Yes.
you may proceed.
All right. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy, Madam Deputy Speaker, what happened to the permanency of jobs? We just make everybody permanent. Just make them permanent. What happened? A stroke of the pen again. It got a stroke again. It did. Got a stroke. Smart men. Smart men. Some lawyers. Smart men. Are there no entitlement? The same workers are now being left out. They're not entitled to have the 1958 assessment for pension. They're not. They're not even getting one. Most are entitled for anything before that. Mr. Speaker, this pension fund will be governed by a board. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I saw 23 minutes of the former presenter. So I expect to get, there's equal time in this parliament for presentation. Okay? Or you want me to end now? You all want to end now because the heat's getting hot, huh? Yes.
Honorable member
Yes.
of St. George Northwest.
Yes.
According to the count of the clerk, the Prime Minister, the member from St. David, spoke for 20 minutes and a few seconds, and by this clock, you have spoken for 20 minutes.
20 minutes already?
Yes.
Oh, wait. Mrs. Madam Speaker, I have a feeling that clock had a stroke. That clock had a stroke, Madam Speaker. So I was checking, but Madam
I do take your
Speaker,
point, so I will give you 1 minute to wrap up. Thank you.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I saw you the one in the chair. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have a lot more to say. So I wonder how, well, in any event, there are social media platforms because I have a lot more material. So I just want to conclude here to say this. This is your pension is a serious matter. And it's something that requires, I would have assumed, both government and opposition working together, but we never get no initiative on part of this government to be part of anything. So I understand what's taking place. So I just want to say this. The workers, the union work leadership needs to do something appropriately to ensure that some of the promises that were made to them have in fact been kept, because they are not being kept. So on that note, Madam Deputy Speaker, I just want to say this. It's a tough time of the year to bring a bill of this nature. With the Xmas season on and people's businesses are concentrated a lot with respect to this Christmas season, I thought this was an unfortunate time that such a bill would have been brought. But I want to take this opportunity though to wish everyone the best Christmas you can have in this very difficult time. Because I heard it being said about have a prosperous Christmas. I don't know how many, maybe for members on the other side, because a 6,000 plus salary increase would have done them well. But I don't know most workers will have a prosperous time, Madam Deputy Speaker. So, but I'll take this opportunity to wish you the best that you can have at this time, and hopefully 2025 can be a better year than 2024 and 2023 have been. And to say that because of what was done previously, the government itself announced in the last point I'm making that they had over $500 million in cash saving, while workers were receiving 6,000 plus workers were receiving work during the Christmas season. Wish on that note to say thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for giving me the extra couple minutes to make this point. Thank you. Thank you.
Members from St. George, Northeast.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill.
The Honourable Speaker, with the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. Now, I rise in full support of this bill as presented by the Leader of Government's Business, Honourable Philip Telesford, and member for St. George Southeast. And to say, Mr. Speaker, that after listening to the outgoing Leader of His Majesty's opposition, I get a sense that it was a lot of majoring in minors. Because the fundamental question that he, through you, should be answering today is why he didn't do anything about pension reform. Dodging. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to provide an opportunity for the unestablished public servant in the service to have a pension as an immediate benefit of its passing, and for the established public servant, as you heard so eloquently by Honourable Prime Minister and other members, whose pension is already guaranteed by the Constitution, to have the option to switch to the new plan. So it is flexible like that. So for the established worker, your constitutional pension, and I want to reiterate that, is not going away, but the option is there to transition if you feel to. That is why the essence of this bill before us here today is not to take away anything, but it is to capture and provide adequately for the mass number of workers on contract who do not have a pension when they go home, who are retiring into poverty. That inequitable distribution of the wealth for the retired, unestablished public officer is the dilemma we seek to solve. That is what this bill is doing. So, Mr. Speaker, as written in the bill, it establishes a contributory pension scheme for the public sector employees. 3% from the worker, 3% from the employer, if you earn 5,000 and under. But let us say that you are earning 5,000, let us say that you are earning above 5,000, you will then be required to contribute 6% on the extra that you are earning above the 5,000. And the government will also match that extra by providing a very same 6% beyond the 5,000. So beyond the 5,000, you will pay 9%. If you're working for 5 and under, you will pay 3%. And it is matched in both scenarios by the government of Grenada. So, while this seeks to solve the dilemma for the unestablished worker, in principle, the new plan, Mr. Speaker, is also seeking to solve the dilemma for the government of Grenada as well. Because, as mentioned by Honourable Prime Minister and member for St. David, prior to the structural adjustment program, Grenada was spending about the 70 cents of every dollar to pay wages and pension for a non-contributory pension scheme. That, Mr. Speaker, was economically unsustainable. So the need to ensure the sustainability of the pension plan is why we must reform it, not later, but now. The then administration, Mr. Speaker, they introduced the attrition policy. I listened to the member of St. Mark, in our usual style, just to put out the doubts there, trying to confuse the population about consultation and consultation. When they decimated the public service, did they consult with anybody with the attrition policy? 3 for 10. Right? So every 10 employee, established employee, who retired from the public service, only 3 could have been hired. What that did, Mr. Speaker, was to reduce the quality of the public service. It destroyed it. So we don't hear the claims and calls for consultation about that then, but we're hearing it now when this bill is seeking actually to improve, not to take away anything from anybody. So that was the destruction of public service. So that's why we have to come here now. And the answer, or rather the intention, I listened to the outgoing leader of His Majesty's opposition. He gave the impression as if, I just want to make this point, because you had social partners. You claim you had a better relationship with the workers. You claim you had this, you had that going for you. You do this, you was pro this, you was pro that. But you still could not come with a recommendation to the Grenadian people on the question of pension reform. And when you had the opportunity, what did you do? You went down in Trade Center, you made a big carnival, and then you come in and talk about smart men and nice talk. Who was a smart man then? And we have to be serious, Mr. Speaker, because this issue of pension reform runs deep. One of the things that we desperately need to resolve in this is that how do we make the Grenadian man and woman in the public service at a higher quality of life post-retirement? Mr. Speaker, in my constituency, I can't speak for others, but I'm sure there are similarities. Every issue that comes to me labor-related, I often reach out to the unions, I often reach out to the government departments, and we discuss. We try to seek a resolution. But the underlying one is that workers who worked with the government and were not entitled to a pension, they are currently in Grenada experiencing a severe economic difficulty. They are coming to the government after giving years of service, in some instances 10 plus years, for assistance with simple things. And it is not that we are upset about giving them the assistance. What we are upset is that they gave years of service and now they have retired into poverty. So that is the frustration that we need to resolve by putting this bill forward. Mr. Speaker, honestly, I stand here today as a pro-worker member of Parliament, partly because of the contributions of my father towards Labour, and because I, as a member of the National Democratic Congress, see the value of lifting the working people out of this country, out of their peril. And so, as part of the team, I feel proud today to associate myself with this bill, because it means, therefore, we have honestly begun the transformation of the lives of people. When we talk about investing the low-income houses in a direct way, as an exchange in a sense, vesting it to the landowner rather than just having them pay a little money and they're staying there and they don't own it. This is a part of our own quest to build stronger social security. But today, honestly, I must disagree with the position of the unions publicly. And I'm doing so, Mr. Speaker, without fair favor. Because I listened to the position put forward by the president of the Public Workers Union on the matter, and he is attempting to tie in pay and grade review into this whole process of pension reform. But I want to say honestly, that is a non-starter, in my belief. Because the issue of pension reform, as I mentioned, and other speakers mentioned, goes far beyond just the deductions. It is about, and the question of the disposable income, it is about providing the opportunity for workers to have some stability post their retirement. That's social security. That is the issue. That is what we need to zero in on. When we talk pension, it's not a no, it's about the future. So laying the foundation, how do we lay the foundation? Obviously we need to do it in the now. And how it is best suited in a sustainable manner is through contributions on both sides. That is what we believe, and that is what has worked throughout the world. So it's an investment they are making, Mr. Speaker, in their own future, and I don't see anybody could go wrong with that. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, you heard it mentioned, workers have been regularized, and therefore the regularization process is going to be taking care of all of these discrepancies that is within the system. In other words, you wouldn't put that it covers an Imani trainee, because the expectation is when that trainee over 12, how much years have been promised, is now regularized under this administration, they will no longer be called an Imani, they will be a worker with guaranteed rights for what they are doing. So that's the difference. That's why it's not listed. And it's not rocket science. We have to see this thing for what it is. It is about the future and building for it. So when the Department of Public Administration announced that the process had commenced, these were the elements that were being taken into account. But the final one, which we must sort out, is that the large amount of workers unestablished can't just automatically go on the established system. You know what will happen? It will bust the fund, right? That constitutional pension. So catering for them, putting the structure in place, which over time is going to ease the burden, not just on the state, but overall on their pockets, because when they retire and they can't get the pension paid if Grenada gets struck on, God forbid, with any other natural disasters, this is going to limit the ability of the country to pay the pension, because that constitutional pension is not too clear on setting aside a fund. It does not set aside a fund. It has to come from the coffers. And so oftentimes, as mentioned, if you have to choose unproductive groups or categories to invest, because that will just come as a transfer payment. If you have to choose to invest there or to invest in the productive workers or capacity of workers, you will choose the latter. And so you will essentially neglect the pensioners, and we don't want to do that. So that's why this reform is critical. Because if we are talking about regularizing all the workers, if we are talking about ridding this country of this scourge of the concept of Imani, where you are trained for life, the best way to do that is to provide a platform. And Mr. Speaker, let me give an example here. This administration, through the negotiations with the unions, approved fringe benefits that for years were on the table. Workers today in the public service are better off. After 2.5 years, that cliche that they constantly ask, whether people better off and so on. The reality is, it is true. They are better off. They get more benefits today. And what we are saying is, Mr. Speaker, in addition to all of this, the reform of the pension is critical. Because you see, you can't be penny wise and pound foolish. Yes, you want more money now. But laying the foundation is most important. And I could speak from example. I wouldn't say why I'm speaking from example, but I could speak from example. Right? Because you see, Mr. Speaker, we fall victim to the nice talk. I listened to a member of St. Mark talking about she read the entire bill and through you, and she didn't understand this and she couldn't get that. See, they're busy on platforms spreading all kind of propaganda about people. If you take the time to be responsible and read the contents of what is coming forward, you would know that we were doing that. So you wouldn't have to ask the question about where are these category of workers. You know that we're regularizing people. And that's the business of the government. So the intention, Mr. Speaker, of this bill and I don't intend to be as long as my predecessor. But the intention of this bill is not, again, to take away any rights from any worker and take away the constitutional pension. It is to provide an opportunity for the unestablished workers who are retiring into poverty to get an opportunity for pension. Mr. Speaker, pension security is more important in the long run, because if we have a situation of 4,000 plus workers unestablished, when they retire, and we see it too often, the first government town hall meeting, there was a sister who came into the trade center and she expressed that she loved the fact that we're talking pension. She said that she worked with the government, but on contract for X amount of years. I can't remember the exact amount. And the shocking answer to her then was that no, based on the current situation, you would not be entitled to a pension. What happens to that worker? And that is what this is seeking to do, to fight for that. So there's no need to frustrate the process. I'm saying to the unions, come to the table. I have the greatest respect for trade unions. I think they serve a genuine purpose, which is to guarantee the rights of all workers, whether public or private sector. And so what they need to do is to be responsible and do not follow the whims and fancies or tunes of political opponents or adversaries to the government just because you want to now help create this environment that you're anti-worker, anti-this, anti-that, when the record shows totally different. So honestly, come to the table. This is my request to Brother Brian Grimes. Come and have a gentleman's conversation. Don't get into this table, and let us work this out for the best interest of all of the workers of the public service. So, Mr. Speaker, if I could just get, I wouldn't take 5, but if I could just get 1 minute just to wrap up. So, in the interest of time, I just want to touch on part 4 of clause 11, which is the...
Honorable, you have 1 minute to wrap up.
Right. Yeah, so thanks, Mr. Speaker. So I just want to touch on that because the composition of the board. Now, 2 things that comes to mind. 1, the current fund is non-contributory. But in addition to that, the determination of how the pension goes, where thing and so on, is almost an open sepulchre. It's unmanaged. And so this new bill is going to help fix that existing problem. 1, making the fund sustainable, and 2, making it more accountable. So that is something, Mr. Speaker, that is in this bill that I think we should embrace. Mr. Speaker, again, in the interest of time, I want to say that one of the other benefits quickly is, well, I see I overrun my time. So I would like to wish my constituents a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And you and staff, Mr. Speaker, and the entire nation, I want to wish you an enjoyable Christmas season 20. Sorry? Well, I'll do so when here. But Mr. Speaker, as you know, thanks very much, and I look forward to the continued debate.
Thank you, Honorable MP Percent, Drive Northeast. And I invite, is it the MP for Carrico? Yes, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to add my voice to this historic moment, historic period within our tenure as an administration and as a parliament. Mr. Speaker, history is being made. And I'm happy to be on the right side of the history that's being made. Mr. Speaker, as a government and legislators, our responsibility is to create the enabling environment for the upward mobility for our citizens. and to help stimulate our economy. Not just for the now or the present, but for the future. And I want you, Mr. Speaker, and honorable members and our citizens to pay attention to the actions that this administration has taken over the past 2 years. Mr. Speaker, promises were made and promises were kept, all in the interests of the citizens of this country, all in the interests for the workers of this country, and all in the interests of the future generation of this country. And I am proud to be standing on the right side of history, Mr. Speaker. So yes, the pension bill, everyone may not agree with, but no one here, Mr. Speaker, can deny that it is the best decision to make at this point in time for the sustainability of the country and to ensure that workers, not just the established workers, but all workers within the service who are unestablished, who does not have a pension, when they attain the retirement age, will be able to go home with something. I am happy that this administration has made and has taken this bold step, and I am going to support this bill 100%. Decisions like paying the pension when we got in, bold decisions, life-altering and changing decisions that has positively impacted the lives of our pensioners, positively impacted our economy, positively impacted all of us. Decisions like the minimum wage, which the other side, Mr. Speaker, failed to address under their watch. We made it our duty because we care about the working class. We care about the workers of this country. And therefore our decisions, our actions reflect this passion for workers. And I could list all the other policies and bills and decisions and actions that we have taken for workers. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, this team is pro-working class. I am proud of that. But Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to stay long. What I want to say, it might be a little bit controversial, but it is important to note it. The workers of this country must understand that we are serious and we genuinely care about them. And our actions demonstrate it. We also want the same from the workers, understanding the need for productivity in this country. So we are backing up what we said by making sure that we create the enabling environment for the working class, for our workers, to ensure that they have the necessary pay increase, to ensure that the pay and grade situation is sorted out, to ensure that they're regularized and ensure that they have pension and all of that. But equally so, Mr. Speaker, we have to recognize that we have a serious problem in this country when it comes to productivity. When you call the ministries, some ministries, wee hours in the morning or in the afternoon, you can't get to some ministries. Some workers not producing. It's a fact. Let's not hide or shy away from it. And yes, I may get blows for making that statement, but it is a reality. So therefore, I hope that the workers can see how genuine we are by making these decisions that will benefit them and the future generations of this country. I'm hoping that they would do the same by producing more, by becoming more productive for the sake of the economy and more so the future of this great nation called Grenada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable MP for Carriacou and Petit Martinic. I now invite the MP for St. Andrew North East to make our contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, I rise to make my contribution on this pension fund reform bill that is put forward before us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today is a historic day, as stated by members of the government. However, Mr. Speaker, it seems like they are the only ones realizing how historic this day is. They are the only ones touting and beating their chest about this day being historic. How does the workers feel about this day, Mr. Speaker? I'm not seeing them celebrating. I'm not hearing them thanking the government for this bill that is put forward here today. Doesn't that say something to you, Mr. Speaker? It clearly means that the workers do not fully accept this bill in its current construct. So to come and beat your chest about you on the right side of history, you should hold for a bit and just listen to the workers. Because the workers are now thinking about the impact this bill will be having on their livelihoods, the immediate livelihoods. I've heard that the workers are asked to forgo their current lives for a life in the future. This is what was said. Here, Mr. Speaker, I'm not quoting. This is what was interpreted. It means, Mr. Speaker, that all of the challenges confronting the worker today should be put aside simply because later on things might be better. So if things not better today, how is it that it's going to be better in many years to come if the worker survives the turbulent times in the present period? Let us look at this bill, which is a contributory pension scheme put forward here, asking the workers to contribute 3% and in some cases 6% based on the salary. However, does this rate considers the rise in the cost of living? Does this rate consider the fact that NIS will be increasing from 12 to 16% by 2031? How will you factor in any increase in salary where this worker has to be paying another 3% to secure a pension in the future, understanding that they're already paying a percentage to secure an NIS pension? And while it is touted to make people believe that there is no pension for workers after several years of working, the NIS pension is there. I'm not saying it is sufficient. I'm not saying it is the best. But history will remind us that the pension reform issue did not start today. History will remind us of 2018 when the MOU was signed with workers and then talks broke down. The workers went to court. They marched in the hot sun, as was said. Of course it happened. And what happened in 2022 with the Glasgow judgment of restoring the 1958 pension law? Do you know, Mr. Speaker, that all workers established or non-established, believe that they will all fall under the 1958 pension? So, here we are presenting to them, after they were promised one public service, no parallel public service. Contract work is illegal. You would understand the context if you only listen and analyze. So what was promised to the workers, Mr. Speaker, is different from what is presented here today. They were promised one public service, meaning, I have to explain for those who didn't reach far in the education system. Meaning that all workers will be treated the same according to the 1958 law, Mr. Speaker. That is what was made to believe. There will not be any parallel public service. All workers will be in that one public service. Today we are presenting a bill to cater for the unestablished public workers. They were fooled to believe that all workers will be made permanent, regularized, and fall under the 1958 Act. They were fooled once. Let us see who will be fooled the second time. That is what we have to look at, Mr. Speaker. Because we presented the workers with a plan to believe that the pension issue was an issue of the then administration, our administration, not wanting to take care of the workers. It was also stated that our administration did not do anything for the workers, or maybe they did the most for workers. That's not true. And the workers know better themselves. Do you remember the period of 2008 to 2013? Not 1% increase was given to workers in their salaries. It took a new National Party administration to come in 2013 to pay all the retroactive payments to the workers and to give them an increase. How can they deliberately forget that, Mr. Speaker? We always say that pension is not a one-off payment. And thank God of the way that the new National Party's administration were governing the country, that when they came in, they could have made payments to the people who were qualified for the pension at that time. Thank God that there were funds that they didn't have to borrow, as was stated in the campaign. They would borrow to do it. Can you imagine that, Mr. Speaker? The NMP administration did not appeal the Hummelin-Armstrong case. And all those workers who fell in that category were paid the pension. Over $7 million were paid to the workers who were in that category. All this is saying that we did what we had to do. We also explained to the people, it is not easy. I remember then Prime Minister Dr. Mitchell stating that we have to do something that will be sustainable for the country's economy. That's not what they stated at the time, the other side. They stated, indicated to the people, it will be done without any form of other contributions to be made. They never spoke about a contributionary scheme. They're only after when they got in, they started to speak about that. It's only after, but not before. But the people, the workers are listening, and that is why today you only have one small group of people celebrating the historic day. How historic that is, Mr. Speaker. It was also mentioned that this bill repeals the Pension Disqualification Act. This is not true. Parts of the act in section 7, part 7 of this bill will be repealed, but not the Pension Disqualifications Act, Mr. Speaker. We must not continue to mislead our people deliberately like that. That is enough. Let's think about the workers and why they are not happy today. Because they are looking at how difficult it will be for them to manage the current living expenses. Government has not done anything to reduce or to offset the cost in inflation that people are faced with now. So there was an increase in NIS last year. A further increase is expected next year. Together with the NIS contribution they have been making, with this new contribution on the backs of the workers, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we understand that there is a need for pension reform because we spoke about it before, but not in this current construct. And if you're going to discuss or put forward a bill, all stakeholders, all those who will be impacted, should feel comfortable with what is put forward. No wonder the president of a particular union is unhappy at this time, because he represents the workers and feels that the consultation process was flawed. It was inadequate and insufficient. It means that this bill needs to go back to the drawing board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable MP for St. Andrew North East. And I now invite the Honorable MP for St. Andrew South East to take the floor. Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise and I feel that I'm continuing from where my colleague, representative for St. Andrew Northeast, would have ended her presentation. Mr. Speaker, the bill that is presented before us today is very difficult to support it in its current construct. So, Speaker, as a matter of fact, I really wished that the government representative who presented this bill would have presented it for first reading only. Yes. And so, Mr. Speaker, given an opportunity for proper consultation on such a significant matter, something that is so deep, something that requires proper consultation. And I listened, Mr. Speaker, over and over, it was said that there was consultation. But the question is, what is consultation? What is it? Mr. Speaker, if I consult with you, there must be some kind of feedback from you in the process. But in one breath we told that we consulted, and in another breath we told they did not participate. So did we really have genuine consultation? Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, I notice a trend in the presentation of these significant bills. Mr. Speaker, the PMFA Act clearly states, and I want to quote with your permission, Mr. Speaker, Section 26(1). In each financial year, every proposed legislation submitted for approval by Parliament shall be accompanied by a fiscal impact analysis stating the proposed legislation's estimated effect on revenue and expenditure for the fiscal year in which the legislation would become effective, as well as the legislation fiscal impact on multi-year planning and budgeting. Mr. Speaker, at least you'd have expected in the presentation, outside of the basic explanatory notes, some kind of financial impact assessment. What exactly are we projecting in the next year, in the next 5 years? How do we see that these monies that are going to be paid into this fund, how do we see with government contribution that this is going to be sustainable? Mr. Speaker, I believe very strongly the government needs to go back to the drawing board with this bill for consultation and for proper analysis of the financial impact. Mr. Speaker, the consultation that I'm speaking about, the feedback that I'm speaking about, Mr. Speaker, not just from workers, and I want to give us an idea as to where we were in 2022. Mr. Speaker, I want to just reference very quickly a letter that came from the Attorney General's office, 30th May 2022, addressed to Mr. James Bristol, the union's representative at the time. Because we hear a lot about what was the NNP's plan as it relates to payment of pension. Mr. Speaker, I quote, and I would make a request, Mr. Speaker, that copies can be circulated. Mr. Speaker, it says, your letter dated 25th May and 18th May. So the government is responding a few days following a request or a letter from the union. The union's letters, 25th and 18th of May. The government responds on the 30th of May. Mr. Speaker, you hear union representatives saying a year ago they wrote a letter to the government and it's still waiting a response on certain matters. Mr. Speaker, the letter says, and I quote, the government of Grenada reaffirms its commitment to paying pensions and gratuity to public officers. It goes on to say, given the financial implications that are associated with commencing the making of payments, and importantly, the ability of the government to sustain these payments consistently, the government has taken the following steps to secure urgent recommendations that will inform a plan of action to put before all stakeholders affected by the High Court judgment regarding public sector pensions. Mr. Speaker, it spoke about some of the steps that government was moving to make. Engaging the IMF, engaging the World Bank, engaging the union and other stakeholders, Mr. Speaker. But I want us to know two things. To determine, Mr. Speaker, a quantifiable estimate of government's outstanding and future pension liabilities. To consider the fiscal options, Mr. Speaker, and the word sustainability was repeated over and over and over this morning. That is all that this letter was saying, sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. And hence the reason, Mr. Speaker, that we are rushing now to take an action with the hope of achieving sustainability. The same sustainability that we spoke about in 2022. Mr. Speaker, want to remind us this morning of where we were before the High Court ruling. Mr. Speaker, before the High Court ruling, the government and the union agreed on a few things that I want to reference this morning. That all public officers will be part of the agreement, equity. And if you ask the unions right now, equity is one of their biggest concerns as it relates to this bill. So there was no separation of public officers, contract and PSC appointed. Public officers were public officers under that arrangement, Mr. Speaker. But in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, one of the other things that were agreed upon was that upon retirement, public officers were going to be paid 70% of their last salary. But do you know, Mr. Speaker, that that arrangement was putting these workers in a better position than the 1958 Act? Mr. Speaker, that is what our government was prepared to do for the workers that I heard this morning we don't care about. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that was agreed upon even before the judgment, so we haven't reached the judgment yet, before the judgment that we are speaking about, that is informing this bill, we agreed with the union that workers upon retirement will not be required to pay anything additional, Mr. Speaker, persons who are coming thereafter. Mr. Speaker, is not what you see that's the problem. Mr. Speaker, we are not talking here. What I'm telling you here, in case you don't know, it is not what we were planning to do. It was what we did. So I'll try to explain to you. You probably were busy talking. You didn't hear me. I'm not talking, Mr. Speaker, in case somebody missed it. I'm not talking about what we were planning to do after the election. What I'm reading to you here is what we did before the elections. And that workers were in a better off position than the position they would have been under the 1958 Act. 70% of their last salary. Mr. Speaker, as I also said, the issue of equity was catered for. So we said workers across the board. Mr. Speaker, the judgment came, and I now want to speak about the strategic approach that I referenced in that letter. Mr. Speaker, when the judgment came, we said, as an administration, we are not going to appeal the judgment. And it is demonstrated very clearly, Mr. Speaker, in the letter that we wrote. As a matter of fact, we went beyond that. So it was guaranteed, Mr. Speaker. I think that's the fundamental point. I hope you can hear me, Mr. Speaker. The fundamental point is that whichever government won the election had no choice but to pay the pension. And that is because, Mr. Speaker, the period for an appeal expired under our administration. And so whether you are NNP, NDC, GULP, TNP, whatever you are, you had an obligation to pay. But you know what is also fundamental, Mr. Speaker? You couldn't pay it if the money was not there. That is the fundamental point. So when the National Democratic Congress government speaks and boasts about payment of pension, there's one thing that we must remember in that boast. That it was the funds left under the NNP administration that paid the pension. So no problem. You chose a model that was different
Just
to our
Honorable
model.
MP, just hold on. I'm having too much muttering coming to my right. I know where they're coming from, but I encourage you to keep them down. Proceed, Honorable MP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm making the point, and I don't know if the objective is to throw me off track, but Mr. Speaker, it won't happen. Mr. Speaker, following the judgment, we made a request to the union to sit and talk. And you know what I believe this morning? Had the union sit and talk with us, we wouldn't be having this conversation this morning. Mr. Speaker, I say to us this morning, there is no government that has sought the interest and has done for workers of this country as the new national county government. So, Mr. Speaker, when we speak about that period, the government was just concerned about one thing: economic growth, fiscal and debt sustainability, because we were thinking down the road. The same thing we're coming back this morning to say we're thinking about down the road. That is what we were thinking about when we proposed what we proposed. But I heard this morning, Mr. Speaker, that we introduced pension. Mr. Speaker, are we really serious? Mr. Speaker, when the NNP administration left office, the number of pensioners on payroll was 2,200. Mr. Speaker, so the payment of pension is not something that started after the last general elections. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, the other thing that we need to note is that when this court, the first court ruling came out, I'm not talking about the one that came out just before the elections. Prior to that, Mr. Speaker, Homilin Armstrong and others, that court ruling came out under an NDC administration in 2011. Mr. Speaker, nothing was done to pay these people according to the judgment. It was the NNP administration that came back in 2018 and made the payment of all those about 56 workers that were affected. Mr. Speaker, you can't be talking seriously if you say that we are anti-workers. Mr. Speaker, I heard this morning, and I couldn't believe it. I heard this morning, it is no longer relevant. My colleague from St. Andrew Northeast was reminding the government that you said there will be one public service. There'll be an end to contract work because contract work is illegal. With the stroke of a pen, we're going to make everybody permanent. She reminded us of those commitments. Mr. Speaker, I could not believe it. I'm sitting here, and in response to what she was saying, persons are saying, this is no longer relevant. What's the relevance of this? Mr. Speaker, it appears that we say one thing to win, and then another thing after we would have won. But, Mr. Speaker, all that being said, I still want to appeal to this administration that this bill is too significant to rush it through today. You express concern that we are saying in one breath it's important, and in another breath we are saying don't rush it. I agree that it may sound contradictory, but Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you why it's not. I believe that workers will be worse off if we pass this bill today. If we take them back, Mr. Speaker, to 2022 and start there, they will be better off than they will be under this bill, Mr. Speaker, if it's passed today. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage the government, I want to plead, I want to beg the government that after our presentations, that some consideration is given to holding on the passing of this bill for further consideration. Mr. Speaker, there are persons who are going to be seriously disadvantaged if this is passed today. And you see, we may jump up if you're NNP or NDC. This is not about politics. This is not about party. This is about the workers who are going to be affected by the passage of this. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this bill...
Honorable, did you hear the bell? Did you hear the bell?
No, I'm sorry, I did not hear the bell.
I got the sense that you didn't hear it.
Mr. Speaker, can I request kindly
but the bell went.
3 minutes?
The bell went. I extend your time by 1 minute.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Speaker, I end by saying that I believe that this bill opens a door for additional legal actions. I believe that this bill, Mr. Speaker, is taking workers backward if we pass it. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that too many workers would be affected if they carefully study the content of this bill. And additionally, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that this bill is going to financially and economically affect too many persons who would have worked very hard for their monies. And so, Mr. Speaker, I close by saying, please, let us reconsider passing this bill today. Thank you.
It happens to all of us. Low on cash and in need of money right away. Play Instacash Monday to Sunday and there are no draws.
So what you saying? No numbers to choose from?
Nope.
And no draw sessions to wait on?
Nope.
And we can play it anytime and any day?
Yep, including Sundays. Instacash. Ask for it by name and choose from a wide variety of games as low as $2 and win instantly. It is fast, it is easy to play, and you win cash right away. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
Good afternoon, viewers and listeners. This is the National Lotteries Authority's Daily Pick 3 with Multi-X Midday Draw. It is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson. Supervising the draw this afternoon is Ms. Giselle Alexander. She is representing RSO and Company Limited, accountants and advisors. And as usual, to give you a quick reminder, there are 4 different bet types in this particular game from which you can choose. They're called inline, mix, pair, and backup. It pays to play Daily Pick 3, so let's see if you are a lucky winner. Good luck to you. Alright, here we go. Our first number, 9, second number, 2, and number 8. Alright, so let's recap. The first number is 9, that's followed by 2. The final number is 8. So we go for now to our multi-X draw. Good luck to you. Multi-X call is free play. Congratulations to our 39 winners from our mid-morning draw. The total payout was $3,890. The play with draw comes up next. We'll see you soon.
Hi, I want $10 on Playway, $20 back up on Pick 3, and cash for each, please.
Okay, are you adding Multi-X to your bet?
Yes, Multi-X, all of them.
Smart! Best value bet. Backup and Multi-X, you cannot go wrong.
Don't matter the bet, Multi-X all of the daily games.
With Multi-X added, your winnings can be multiplied 3 times, 5 times, even 7 times. So make it a rule. Add Multi-X to all your Playway, Daily Pick 3, and Daily Cash for bets every day and for every draw, and watch your money grow. Available at stores and online.
You heard it here. Multiply your winnings daily. Must be 18 or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
And once again, this is the National Lotteries Authority's Playway with Multi-X Midday Draw. It is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson. With me once again, Ms. Giselle Alexander, representing RSO and Company Limited, accountants and advisors. In this game, you can bet from $1 up to $10, or you can bet in increments on any number or dream symbol of your choice, and being with a chance to win 24 times the amount you bet. That is $24, of course, for every $1 that you spend. Value your dreams and win your way with Playway. So let's see if you are this afternoon's lucky winner. Good luck to you. 27. Once again, our playway number is 27 and the dream symbol is the spirit. So let's go over now to our multi-X draw. Good luck to you. Multi-X ball is a free play, so congratulations to our 1,515 winners from our mid-morning draw. Total payout $101,976. The daily cash 4 comes up next. We'll see you soon.
Like family, it's always exciting when lottery players get together. Now the lottery games are joining in the fun. Check out the multiplier family of Instacash games. 5 times the cash at $2, 10 times the cash at $3, and 20 times the cash at $5. On your tickets, match any of our numbers with any of the winning numbers and win the prize below that number. There's more. Multiply your winnings up to 5 times, 10 times, or 20 times more. Winning is easy. Play Monday to Sunday. There are no draws to wait on. Win instantly. It's the multiplier family of Instacash games with over $675,000 to be won instantly. Don't just buy one, buy all, because family is everything. Must be 18 years and older to play. NLA, making family dreams come true.
Welcome back. This is the National Lotteries Authority's Daily Cash 4 with Multi-X Midday Draw. It is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson, and back with me once again is Miss Giselle Alexander. She's representing RSO and Company Limited, accountants and advisors. So in this game, you can choose any number from 0 to 9 in any of the 11 bet types offered. The tickets cost as little as $1. Backup costs $2. More plays, bigger prizes. Let's play Daily Cash 4. Good luck to you. First number 2, second number 7, next number 1, final number 7. Alright, so let's recap for your benefit. Our first number is 2, followed by 7, the next number is 1, and the final number is 7. So we go over now to our multi-X draw. Good luck to you. Free play. Congratulations to our 12 winners from our mid-morning draw. Total payout was $2,400. Continue supporting the National Lotteries Authority. Have a good afternoon.
It's back, and you must win. Yes, Grenada. As the name says, you're bound to win. In the NLA's 2024, you must win promotion. Simply spend $15 or more in a single purchase on Daily Pick 3, Daily Cash 4, or Playway. Then check your ticket to see what you have won. Look for the words, you won, free cash, or free Insta tickets, or free raffle entries for chances to win. Not 1, but 2 Suzuki Swift cars. In the NLA's 2024, you must win promotion. Over $100,000 in prizes to be won. So be sure to spend in increments of $15 on all your daily games for the rest of the year. Promotion runs from November 15th to December 31st, 2024. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 18 or older to participate. NLA, spreading the Christmas cheer to you and those who's there.
Express my deep appreciation to members who have made their contributions to the discussion here in respect of this bill. I want to make just a few observations. I'm trying to restrain myself because of time. But just a few observations. First and foremost, we speak about, or the opposition spoke about, Mr. Speaker, about the additional burden being placed on employees. Very emotional appeal, as if to say that setting aside for the rainy day, for the times in which you retire, it's almost as if we're committing a crime by partnering with our employees to ensure that they have a pension. I want to submit to this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, that investments like pensions and NIS are what we call social money hedges, which hedges against income losses due to unemployment and other forms of loss of income when the employee is not regularly engaged by the employer. These hedges are extremely important. It is not a tax. This is a hedge to protect the employee during the most vulnerable stage of life, when they have to depend on medication to survive and other things. And so, Mr. Speaker, there are many stories of when people within the service who operated on contract and who were not established workers, when they leave the service, Mr. Speaker, not having a pension. I recall of stories that were told to me how certain employees, when they face the reality of no more being employed with the government, literally lost their minds, got ill, and died because of the adverse effect of not having a pension in place to take care of these employees. Because there are a lot who actually do believe that they do qualify for a pension, but in actual fact, they do not. And so we must take cognizance of that reality, and as a responsible, people-loving, caring government, we must make the necessary provisions. And that is what this bill seeks to do. We simply, Mr. Speaker, cannot continue to kick the can down the road by making fake excuses like we need more consultation. Really and truly, there is no genuine cry for consultation. That's not the case here. The case here is that this government is making a solid move towards protecting the employee, which the previous administration failed to do during their tenure, even when they had two back-to-back absolute majorities in the House. They failed, Mr. Speaker, to make these necessary adjustments to protect our employees. And so because we are the ones doing it, they have to make all kinds of reasons why they cannot support. And that is why today, Mr. Speaker, we shall call for a division on this bill, because we want to know, Mr. Speaker, who actually supports these employees. Mr. Speaker, this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, is one that supports and not hurts our workers. And I say this, let us not be fooled. Let us not be fooled by the loudspeakers, by those who are trigger crazy on Facebook and other social media platforms, and those who think they have the support of workers. Let us not be fooled by all the drama. Let us answer the tough questions. Is this beneficial to the workers? And if this does not exist, then what is there in place to support the retirement of our workers? If not this, then what? And I must say this morning, I am a bit disappointed. I must add that I'm a bit disappointed, because I really, genuinely expected a better level of contribution on this bill from the opposition. I'm a bit disappointed, because although we had a lot of debate, Mr. Speaker, most of the debates coming from the opposition was not relevant to this bill. And we could have actually objected, but we waited and waited, person after person, to hear stirring contributions to enlighten us onto things that we can improve, but nothing was forthcoming. All we heard was emotions and emotions and emotions and an appeal so that people can be fooled into not supporting this. But I believe, Mr. Speaker, that our workers are much wiser than this. The question is, if not this, then what? So I want to pause here, because in the interest of time we have another bill that we want to get passed. So I will pause here, and I want to again express my appreciation to everyone who has contributed to this, and I now commit this bill back to.
Thank you. Leader of Government Business. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Public Sector Employees Pension Fund 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill part by part. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that this Honourable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill part by part. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Honourable members, this House is now in committee.
Part 2, establishment and membership of scheme.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Establishment of public sector employees pension fund.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 3 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it. Proceed.
Part 4, establishment of board of trustees.
Did you read Part 3? Okay. Honourable members, the question is that Part 4 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 5, contributions to the fund.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 5 forms part of the bill. And those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 6, management and administration of fund and claims and benefits.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 6 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 7, miscellaneous provisions.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 7 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Consequential amendments to acts.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 8 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Schedule 1, list of statutory bodies. Schedule 2.
Honourable members, the question is that Schedule 1 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Schedule 2, rates of contribution.
Honourable members, the question is that Schedule 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 3, vesting of employer contributions.
I don't see. Oh. Schedule 3. Okay.
Contributions.
Honourable members, the question is that Schedule 3 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 1, preliminary.
Part 1. Honourable members, the question is? Honourable members, the question is that Part 1 forms part of the bill. Do you have government business?
Oh, sorry, yes. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment which I would like to circulate to members of the House so that we can consider members of the committee, sorry.
Okay, you like to circulate it?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Proceed. Honorable, do you have government business? Please come to the bench. No, that's it. Yeah. Honorable members, the leader of government business will, without the amendments, that will be tabled to the floor because the hard copies intended to be circulated are not available as we see it. Do you have government business?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this change is intended to add a little clarity or at least reduce ambiguity in the way that the information is stated in the schedule. So I refer, Mr. Chairman, to Clause 3, subsection 3. We wish to now delete subsection 6, subsection 4, and replace with subsection 6 with subsection 3. The following. Yes. And the second amendment, you got me, Mr. Chair? Mr. Chairman?
No, not quite.
Okay. So the first amendment, the two amendments, the first amendment is in clause 3, subsection 3, subsection 3, delete subsection 6, subsection 4, and replace it with subsection 6, subsection 3. Yeah? Because subsection 3 is already there. So just a replacement, really.
So, subsection, you're deleting 6 and 4. You should just write it out. Yeah, write it out.
You got me?
Proceed.
Okay. Right? Should I proceed to second or are you good, or you want me to? All right.
Yes, proceed to the second.
Right.
Just hold on, Honorable MP, while the clock seeks some clarification. Proceed.
All right, so the second amendment, Schedule 2, Part D, Schedule 2, it is now being amended by deleting the following. 1.5% by salary less than $5,000 plus 3% by salary greater than $5,000 times years of unbroken service. So that section there, with the calculation, we are now deleting that section, and now we're going to replace it with the following. $3% by annual salary up to $60,000 plus 6% of annual salary in excess of $60,000 multiplied by the number of years of past service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Leader of Government Business. Mr. Clerk, can you read for the benefit of the House the amendments?
The amendments recorded are as follows. In Clause 3, First Amendment, in Clause 3, Subsection 3, delete 6, Subsection 4, and replace with 6, Subsection 3. The Second Amendment, Schedule 2, Part D, is amended by deleting the following: 1.5% by salary less than 5,000 plus 3% salary greater than 5,000 times years of unbroken service, and replacing with the following: 3% times annual salary up to 60,000 plus 6% of annual salary in excess of 60,000 times number of years of past service. Those are the two amendments as recorded.
All right, I hope everyone has heard the amendments. for further reinforcement, it will be circulated to the members of this House via email. Yeah? All right. So that takes us through. Is she finished? I think she's finished. All right, honorable members, with the amendments proposed by the leader of government business, I now put the question to you that the amendments tabled to this bill be accepted as provided by the leader of government business. Those who are in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. Thank you. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Resumes.
My light is on.
You have government business.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the House resumes and that the Chairman reports progress on the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the House resumes and the Chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. As many as that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honourable House now resumes. Honourable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed with 2 amendments. Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Chairman's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the Chairman's report be adopted. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the 3rd reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a 3rd time. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a 3rd time and pass. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Public Sector Employees Pension Fund 2024.
Honourable members, at this point, wish to propose to this Honourable House that we break for lunch, as we have another bill to be tabled and discussed. I don't know what your wish is. It's by my watch 2:07, and the nature of today's sitting, I propose that we break for lunch, have an abbreviated lunch. Continue? Well, let me take the vote. If I want to continue, I will take the vote. Right? My wish that we break, but if I'm hearing the view that you want to continue and finish, it's fine with me. So I put it to the vote. Just hold, please. I put it to the vote, and from the results, we will decide. Honourable members, those who would like to continue the sitting until the second bill is finished, before we take our lunch break, can I see by the raise of your hand? Can I see by the raise of those who want to continue? So we have 3, right? We have a late vote, right? Those who wish that we break now and we return in about 40 minutes time. Can I see by the raise of your hand? Raise up your hand. Right, so it is carried, we have to continue. 4 voted for us to continue, and 2 voted that we break now. So I go with the wish of the House. So we continue the sitting. Go ahead. Go ahead. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for its first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Judicial Officers Pension Bill 2024. Thanks.
A bill which seeks to provide for the payment of pensions and gratuities in respect of service of judicial officers of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Judicial Officers Pension Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the relevant standing order be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all the stages at the sitting. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to provide for the payment of pensions and gratuities in respect of the service of a judicial officer of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. This bill contains 3 clauses and 3 parts, and 18 clauses. 3 parts, 18 clauses. Part 1, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, similarly to the previous bill, I would try to summarize some of what I consider the more important aspects of the bill. So, Part 1 provides for the preliminary provisions and contains clauses 1 to 4. Clause 1, of course, speaks to the short title of the bill. Clause 2 provides for the interpretation. And the bill applies to judicial officers, that is the Chief Justice, Justice of Appeal, High Court Judge, or a Master of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. The Part 2, Mr. Speaker, speaks of the pensions and gratuities. Section 5 speaks to the charging of the amounts to the consolidated fund and states that there shall be a charge on and paid out of the consolidated funds all such sums of money as may from time to time be payable by way of a pension or gratuity in pursuance of this Act and the Supreme Court order. The circumstances in which these may be paid are as follows. Section 6. So the pension may be granted under this Act to a judicial officer on his or her retirement from service on or after the officer has served for at least 5 years of continuous service. And on attaining the age of retirement, as well as if there is an abolition of his or her office, as well as if the judicial officer retires on the ground of incapacity by way of an infirmity of mind or body on a permanent basis. And the retirement, Mr. Speaker, as per Section 7 of the Act, the judicial officer shall retire from office on the attainment of the retirement age. Notwithstanding subsection 1, but subject to subsection 3, a judicial officer may retire from office if he or she gives to the Commission at least 12 months notice in writing, or his or her intention to do so. Subsection 3, the period of notice under subsection 2 does not include a period of vacation leave, whether it's earned before or during the period of such notice. The rates of pension are to be calculated for the various levels of judicial officers as follows. In the case of the Chief Justice, if he or she has had continuous service as a judicial officer for a period of not less than 10 years, the pension is equal to the annual pensionable emoluments attached to the office of the Chief Justice. Or, if he or she has had continuous service as a judicial officer for a period of less than 10 years, but not less than 5 years, the pension is computed on a prorated basis, calculated by dividing the number of years of continuous service by 10 years, which is the maximum in this category, and multiply the result by the annual pensionable emoluments attached to the office of the Chief Justice. In the case of the Justice of Appeal, it is very similar, but in this case, the period of continuous service is a period of 12 years as opposed to 10, as stated earlier, under the Chief Justice. So the Justice of Appeal must serve a period of 12 years of continuous service. And in case, and then he gets, of course, the full emoluments, the full amount. If, however, there is a period of service less than the 12 years, then it is prorated in a similar fashion, divided by the number of years, which is the 12 years, and multiplied by the result of the annual pensionable emoluments for the position of Justice of Appeal. In the case of the High Court judge, if he or she has had, again, continuous service, and this time for a period of 15 years, the pension is equal to the annual pensionable emoluments attached to the office of the High Court judge. So in similar fashion, as long as you meet the required number of years for that category, you get your full emoluments. Get a full pension as for the emoluments that you were getting previously. However, if there is a service for less than the period of 15 years, then again the pension is prorated in similar fashion, divided by the 15 years and multiply by the service years and by the amount of emoluments to get the High Court judge's pension. In the case of a master, the period again is 15 years and in similar fashion to that of the High Court judge. So the formulas remain basically the same, it's just the years of service that is different. Payment of a pension, Section 11. Subject to subsection 2 and 5, a pension payable under Section 8 and 9 must be paid monthly in arrears, that's at the end of the month basically, with effect from the date of retirement. In pensionable circumstances and subject to the Act, continues to be paid during the lifetime of the person entitled to the pension. So the pension is basically a lifetime pension, and as stated earlier, comes out of the consolidated fund. This is not, Mr. Speaker, this is not a contributory scheme, as was discussed earlier. This one is a non-contributory scheme, and it is basically paid out of the consolidated fund, stated. All right, so a judicial officer otherwise qualified for pension under subsection 8, so who resigns from office before attaining retirement age shall receive a pension under section 8 or a reduced pension and gratuity under subsection 9, under section 9 on attaining retirement age. So if you retire before, then when you get to the age, you get that reduced pension. All right, at the time of resignation, I think I made a mistake. If you resign before, then you get the pension on retirement age. So it is triggered by the age. Right. At the time of resignation, specified. So at the time of the resignation, that's provided that you resign before, the judicial officer should specify whether or not the person opts to receive a pension in accordance with Section 8, or whether or not the judicial officer opts for what we call a reduced pension and gratuity under Section 9. So they have the choice of choosing which option is preferred. But they must do so on retirement, so at least know exactly how to go about it. Subject to Section 4, where a person referred to under subsection 2 dies before attaining retirement age, there must be paid to his or her spouse. So if you die leaving a spouse before, the pension would be now paid to the spouse. Go through all this, should I? Okay, in the case where there is not a spouse, it is paid to the person's estate. I'm just trying to skip over some of it. The repeal, Section 17, subject to Section 18, the Supreme Court of Grenada and the West Indies Associated States rates of pension for judges, the Act Cap 315A is hereby repealed. Right? And finally, savings, Section 18, notwithstanding Section 17, the Supreme Court of Grenada and the West Indies Associated States rates of pension Judges Act Cap 315A shall continue to apply to a person who was immediately before the coming into operation of this Act receiving a pension under that Act, and a person who was a judicial officer immediately before the coming into operation of this Act who opts not to be subject to this Act under Section 3. So this is it, Mr. Speaker. Basically, this Act is simply following suit with the rest of the OECS with this enactment, so as to make it harmonized in the region, so that judges serving in any one of the territories can actually serve knowing that their pension is guaranteed whichever jurisdiction they're serving in. So this is basically very automatic, one might say, in that we ought to comply as a nation to make this consistent throughout the region. So I commend this bill to the House. We still do have an opposition, so I really thank the lone member for staying, for holding the fort. And I commend this to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Leader of Government. Business? Honorable MP for St. Patrick East.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be very brief. I stand to support the bill, the St. Caribbean Supreme Court, Judicial Officers Pension Bill 2024. And again, I just want to repeat something that the leader of the government business mentioned, which is that it's an OECS bill that has been commissioned and has been passed in all the other islands except Grenada. And so we would like to basically correct that issue and make sure that Grenada is being compliant so that the judicial officers will get their pension as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP for St. Patrick East. Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your recognition. I too wish to lend my support to the bill as presented by the Leader of Government Business. Mr. Speaker, obviously the bill before also dealt with pensions, and this bill is also dealing with pensions. And Mr. Speaker, I think out of an abundance of caution to ensure that we can answer the mischief that oftentimes people sow, it's perhaps important for us to talk a little bit about pensions in the general context and the various classes of public officers who the law recognizes as being entitled to receive pensions. And it starts with the Office of the Governor General. There's a specific act that deals with pensions for whoever serves as Governor General. I will not go on to say what those benefits are, but there's very little difference between an active and a retired Governor General in terms of the emoluments that are paid to them. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of actually, I don't think there are any remaining retired Governor Generals. The next category is in fact judicial officers. And again, there's only at any given time one Governor General, and usually one or two, if that many, in retirement. As it stands now, we don't have, with Sir Daniel having departed recently. For judicial officers assigned to Grenada, and that's important, we don't have a lot. At best, I think there may be 5 High Court judges at any given time in Grenada. When I started practice, there used to be 2 at best. Justice Lyle St. Paul and Brian Aline were the 2 judges. Over time, we've managed to get 2 or 3 to deal with the significant increase in litigation, mostly civil litigation, as well as to deal with the challenges posed by the impacts of Hurricane Ivan that led to a large backlog in criminal cases and so on. So this bill is only seeking really to address, at any given time, 4 or 5 judges, assuming they retire in Grenada. And that's important because I think I saw some sort of post where someone was suggesting that we're going to give money to our big friends and we're seeking to take away public officers' pension. I want to repeat, but you see, that's how they refer to judicial officers. Not appreciating that the judiciary is an equal, constitutionally established part of the state. And had it not been for the judiciary, the public officers would not have gotten their pension. Had it not been for the Glasgow ruling, the executive would have been able to continue not paying the public officers their pension. And so this is a classic case of how the separation of powers works and how we can have checks on balances on the excess and the abuse of power that can happen, especially in circumstances where you had the executive controlling the legislature because you had no opposition. So you had a 15-member parliament. You had no opposition in parliament. And so if you didn't have a judiciary to say there's still something called the rule of law, there's still something called the Constitution, and you have to check legislation passed in Parliament by the constitutionality test, we may not have been in a position where the public officers receive the funds that they receive. So too, judicial officers are entitled to pensions. And in a sense, this is pension reform as well, because what it is seeking to do is to avoid anomalies in the pension benefits for judges of the Supreme Court of the Eastern Caribbean, because it's one court. Anomalies that can arise by virtue purely of the accident of where you retire. You would appreciate most of the judges. In fact, I don't think there is a Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court judge in Grenada who's a Grenadian. And you'd find that when you go to other islands, most of the judges are not from that island. And so they may retire in a place that they're not from. What you don't want is a situation where people forum shop, where if the pension benefits are better in St. Lucia, they try and see if they can get a posting in St. Lucia closer to retirement to get better benefits. Or if it's in Grenada, they try and hopefully beg the Chief Justice will send me in Grenada because, or if it's in the BVI, when fellas get paid in US, they say send me to the BVI. So it's really meant to ensure that there's harmony across the board in terms of addressing pensions payable to judicial officers. I also want to point out, Mr. Speaker, that is a separate act passed in 1989 and then amended in 2003 that gives pensions to members of parliament. And I think on my last reading it said after more or less 8.5 years. So 2 terms, not even 2 terms, a term and 2 thirds. You get pension. 8.5 years, Mr. Speaker. And your public officers who working in public service for 15 years, 10 years, and we think it's okay for them not to get a pension? When members of this House back in 1989, no dear, and 2003, enacted legislation to give members of parliament a pension. Now, I'm not saying members of parliament are not entitled to a pension. I'm saying people who work for the state. This is the broader point. We ought to, within our limited resources, be encouraging retirement savings, be encouraging pension payments, be encouraging some type of gratuity payments that allows us to save and pull our resources for the inevitable. You can't work forever. And when that time comes, we need to be in a position where at least we can take care of ourselves or make sure that people don't go home and then basically have no means of living. And so whether it's judicial officers, whether it's the Governor General, whether it is members of Parliament, whether it is government ministers, I don't know, government ministers have pension? I don't think so. Right? If government ministers have pension, you know, and obviously public officers. And we then want to ensure that the statutory bodies, and we want to encourage private employers, in addition to the NIS, to also look at establishing pension plans. Because the facts are, Mr. Speaker, that if you look at countries with a robust pension plan system, you would see that they tend to fuel economic growth and development. I can give a good example. Probably one of the best examples is the European nation of Holland, or the Kingdom of the Netherlands, as it's probably its more formal name. They have one of the most robust pension systems in the world. And their pension plans and their pension funds are extremely wealthy and have been able to go on and invest in significant economic activity worldwide. And we need to be able to put our pension plans, not just the NIS funds, the government plans, in a position to do a similar thing. And I want to make this point because you see, sometimes we think we're fighting for what's in our best interest and we're not. And I want to reiterate. The constitutionally guaranteed pension for established officers is an unfunded plan. It's unfunded. There is no money being set aside for it, unlike the contributory plans. Unfortunately, this one suffers from that same challenge as well. It's not funded. It's coming out of the general coffers. So there's no segregation of the fund. There's no protection. There's nobody keeping an eye on it. There is no investment or actuarial reports being done. So what you have is, if there's a risk to the government's fiscal resources, you then have a risk to whether you will be able to be paid. Constitutional law or not, you have to deal with the reality. If you give a man a bread to sell, and before he sells the bread and he was supposed to pay back, and a man rob him, unless he has resources in his pocket to be able to repay you, the reality is, even though contractually he's supposed to pay back, he's going to run into a difficult time. So I'm saying, when these defined benefits plans were considered, the public service was 200 people, or maybe 300 people. That's 1958. That's 20 years before Grenada became an independent country. In 1958, there weren't secondary schools in most of Grenada. People were in primary schools. If you went to a secondary school, your parents probably had to be able to pay for it. So we have to understand the context in which those things applied. And when you have now the government employing thousands and thousands of people, it's not sustainable. Right? It's one thing if you're paying a defined benefit to 4 or 5 people. And so we have to understand it's taxpayers' money that funds these unfunded pension plans. So we respect what has happened, but we also have to be honest about the need for us to make sure that there's sustainability in the things that we are doing. 40 years ago, there was no national insurance scheme. It would have been only public officers then who would have had pensions. The rest of people, unless there's a private employer who was magnanimous enough to do that, it means the vast majority of Grenadians were working without any pension or social safety net or social security. And you would see that throughout the region that was the same, and then NIS was passed throughout almost all of the islands at the same time. So there is a need for us to continue the conversation about the importance of pensions, about bringing more and more people on board. The bus drivers, the barbers, the nail techs, the people who own the hair salons, the people who have clothing stores, the people who are tailors and seamstresses. If there is no retirement framework for them to pay and save money, they too will drive a bus until they're 60, 70, can't drive anymore, and then we'll have nothing. Right? So what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that as part of the broader context, everybody who works, the goal should be to get us to a point where everybody who works, from the Governor General come down, should be in a position where, as a country, we have formalized, properly managed, properly run pension and retirement schemes that can support our workers when they get to their golden years, and that they could go in dignity, and they could go with the assurance that they have their little kakada that will allow them to be able to at least maintain a decent standard of living. And that includes judicial officers, Mr. Speaker. So I commend the bill to you, and I hope there's a special thing about people from St. Mark, Mr. Speaker. You see, only the MP for St. Mark is still here, soldier none. So I hope we get to support the bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Honorable Prime Minister, thank you very much. Leader of Government Business, I'm not seeing anybody else.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the Prime Minister for his expression of support, and by consent and by silence, I thank all the other members, including a lone opposition member who is here faithfully with us for
that's real faith, not
for the support. And I now, Mr. Speaker, commend this bill to the House for the second reading.
Honourable members, the question is that this bill be read a second time. Those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Judicial Officers Pension Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill clause by clause.
Honourable members, the question is that this Honourable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honourable House is now in committee.
Part 2, Pensions and Gratuities.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 2 forms part of the bill. Those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 3, Miscellaneous.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 3 forms part of the bill. Those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it.
Preliminary.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 1 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it, indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the House resumes and the Chairman report progress on the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the House resumes and the Chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honourable House now resumes. Honourable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the Chairman's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the Chairman's report be adopted. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and passed. As many as that opinion say aye, of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Judicial Officers Pension Bill 2024.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House be adjourned, signed and aye.
Honourable members, the question is that the House be adjourned, signed and aye. MP for St. Andrew Northwest, Eliza on it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this time to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous New Year, but also to the people of St. Andrew Northwest, I recommit my support to work with you, and so I look forward to seeing you during the holiday as we share with those who need our assistance, and we provide good tidings to the children across the constituency. Thank you.
Thank you, St. Andrew North West. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to express my appreciation to my constituents who stood with me throughout the year 2024, especially during my period of illness. When I was operating on half power, I just want to say how much I appreciate them, and I look forward to 2025 when we work closer together. I also want to wish all of my family, my friends, constituents, employees, ministers of government, MPs, and everyone a very Merry Christmas and a bright and wonderful 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to
Prime Minister.
Also take the opportunity to express, particularly for the citizens, as I call them, of St. David, best wishes for the holiday season. I want to emphasize that we need to do everything in moderation. There really is no upside to excess. So whether it's on the alcohol, whether it's on the ham, whether it's on the cake, whether it's on the food, that we moderate. The only thing I would say we should do in excess is spend time with our loved ones. This has been a truly testing year. A lot has happened. It's our 50th anniversary as an independent nation. I think we had a very successful commemorative series of events to mark that. And as we were coming out of that, we got punched with Hurricane Beryl. We've been double punched with the heavy rains and the flooding that has happened. But for the most part, we are still here, united, I think stronger than ever, demonstrating our resilience to each other, demonstrating our resilience to the world and to the region. I also want to thank the members of CARICOM in particular for the unyielding support that they provided to me and to the government and people of Grenada, in particular in the last 6 months. I will be the outgoing chairman of CARICOM at the end of December, and Prime Minister Marty will take over in the new year. but I really do want to place on record my appreciation to my CARICOM colleagues for the tremendous support they provided to me and to Grenada during the difficult times that we've had. But I think all in all, Mr. Speaker, we can certainly say we've been tested, we've been tried, but as the MP for CARICOM, P.T. Martinique, said here this afternoon, I think we're on the right side of history. And we are demonstrating that as a nation we can bounce back faster and better from the challenges that we face. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity provided to me to be part of a team that remains united, that remains committed and earnest in their unyielding desire to serve the people of Grenada, CARICOM, and P.T. Martinique. And so when we talk about putting people first, that's not just a slogan. It is something that we live by, and our commitment to the citizens of this country is the reason why we were elected to serve as members of Parliament, and we redouble our commitment to doing so in 2025, 2026, and beyond. There's no elections being called in Grenada in 2025. There are a lot of elections taking place in the region, though, starting with places like Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Bahamas in a not too distant future, St. Lucia the year after. That's assuming everybody goes their full term. So, but we are only now getting started. And as the two MPs at the extreme right of this chamber said, you ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. I sense no one else wants to comment. I use the opportunity myself as Speaker to thank the members of this Honorable House for looking after the business of the nation the way you have done. In my view, it was by and large an experience of camaraderie from both sides, looking at the common goal of this country. I want to thank our legal counsel, who have always been here with us. I want to thank you, the police officers, who ensure that the mace doesn't get thrown outside, and things like that. But for being there, for having our police officers there, and for the entire staff of Parliament, the clerk, and the entire staff of Parliament, and all those who have worked in Parliament and with Parliament during the past year. My wish is that every one of us would have a restful, a reflective, and a Christ-centered Christmas. And as we enter 2025, may the grace of God rest upon us all. Thank you very much. We know, I think the motion was moved by the Leader of Government Business, that the House be adjourned, signed, aye. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. This House now stands adjourned, signed, aye.